What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to be back on the old CJ, working on what is hopefully the last of the large projects, the ones that take the most effort and the most work. Today we're going to be replacing the old tire shocks and springs with a complete new set. It's going to be a Skyjacker set with shock springs. I've got shackles, I've got everything. Let's get started. All right, guys, we got our parts laid out here. So I got the springs kind of laid out where they need to be. We got the front shocks, we got the rear shocks, we got all of the U-bolts. We've got new shackle bushings, new shock bushings. We've got shock covers, we got some instructions. I even picked up some new shackles just in case we break something, strip something, and we need to replace the whole thing. So I got some of those. The only thing I don't see in this kit is going to be bolts for the U-bolts, or the nuts for the U-bolts. So I hope we can get these off. I've been spraying them with like a penetrating oil, like a PB blaster. So hopefully they come off. If not, I may have to make a run to get some nuts for these U-bolts. But other than that, I think we got everything. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the back. Get it knocked out, because I got to show you guys something pretty crazy I noticed on this Jeep. So let me get that set up and we'll check it out. All right, so I noticed whenever I was driving this thing that it bucks around quite a bit. It's quite a bit rougher than I anticipated. I know it's a Jeep. I've owned Jeeps for over 10 years. I know they ride rough, but this thing's pretty violent. And I noticed something in the different projects I've done here. I want to show you guys. I want to get this on video. You see right now I've got the jack under the rear end. So the Jeep is not on the jack stands. It's got about an inch, right? When I lower down this jack, that rear axle is not going to droop at all. It's going to land on that jack stand and then it's just going to stop. So I'm going to set you guys up so you can watch. You got to see this. It's crazy. I'm not sure what's going on. So yeah, something's pretty bound up in this rear end, and I don't know if maybe that's the wrong shocks and they're too short and they're working like limiting straps. I'm kind of scared because there's going to be a lot of pent up energy whenever I undo these bolts. So wish me luck. We'll see what happens. I may just have to cut them or cut the shock. I don't know. I got to be able to get something loose in order to free this thing up to get it neutral so I can get all the bolts out. So I'm going to start with that and see where we can get. All right, so all of the nuts on the spring bolts came out. So next thing I'm going to try to do is get this shock off. I'm going to get the nuts off of it and see if I can get it to come loose. I don't know. I think that's where the energy is pent up, so it may be a bit violent, but I'm going to see what I can do. All right, so the nuts on the shock bolts come out pretty easy, but I kind of pushed on it. It's not moving. I think that's the problem. So I'm gonna get some percussive persuasion, see if we can maybe convince this thing to come loose. I think I'm gonna put the jack back under the axle just in case it is more violent than I anticipate and to catch it. So let's try it and see. All right, I got the jack back under the middle of the axle. I've got the largest small hammer I have. I've got a big sledge, but I'm hoping I don't need that much persuasion. So let's tap on it a few times and see what happens here. Wow. Yeah, those are absolutely limited out. I can see at the top here that it's completely smashed the bushing and the shock. I have no idea how they got them on there in the first place. But that's the problem. I've got to get them loose. I may have to cut the shock. Really hard to get a good angle on it with all this stuff in the way. Alright, that's all it is. Yeah, see, even with the jack underneath there, that rear end moved quite a bit when it finally cut loose. So that was the problem. Now, everything should be good and freed up. Now that thing's stuck in the ground. All right, I'm gonna cut the other side real quick, and then we can get back to normal stuff. Yeah, you can see just how much pressure was put on those bushings. They've ovaled them out just from these shocks being completely extended the whole time. All right, so next I'm trying to get these U-bolt nuts off. I have to be very careful with those. As we saw earlier, we don't have replacements for those, so I can't strip those out or I have to take another trip to the store. So what I did is I took a wire wheel on a drill bit here and just kind of knocked the dirt and crap off of the threads, and then hit the threads with some PB blaster. And now we're going to try it out, see if they'll spin off, because I really don't want to strip these and have to take a trip. So let's see what happens. Alright, so that actually went pretty smooth. One of them fought me a little bit, but I just tightened it back up and cleaned it a little more and they come off. So all of that is loose. I'm going to go ahead and knock out the other side just because we got to have both sides in order to do this axle. And then we'll come back and switch this spring. It looks like things are moving along. Alright, excellent progress has been made. All of the U-bolts are loose, all of the shocks are loose. So the only thing holding the axle up is the jack, and then the springs are holding by all the bolts in the shackles and the front. So I should now be able to knock these bolts out of the back and out of the front, drop the spring out, and then switch it. And then we'll start cleaning up the old parts. The spring perches and such need to be cleaned up, and then we can start putting stuff back together. Alright guys, it seems we've hit our second little hang up. So it looks like this Jeep has a non-factory exhaust system because the front bolt is hitting the muffler. I don't know if there's enough slack in the piping for me to push it up an inch to pop that thing out or not, but that's what I'm going to try to do. I'll let you know. That sucks. Alright guys, I got it out. So I noticed that this exhaust is fairly loose, so I just grabbed a strap, hooked it to the other side there, and just kind of pulled it over a little bit until I had enough room to get that bolt out. So I guess I'm going to leave it like that for now. I'll probably run the bolt in from the other side to put it all back together, so don't run into this problem in the future. But it's done. All right guys, I didn't really record a lot of that. I just kind of put my head down and did work because it was kind of difficult, but we have progress. The springs are off, the rear shackles are off, the old bushings have been pounded out of the hole that they were seized into. We're making progress. I did run into what I think may be an issue. You see these springs, they this axle has a bolt coming out of the perch, and it has a shim, which is normal, but it has a bolt instead of the new shocks having just the little locator nub like that. So it looks like I'm going to have to unbolt this spring pack and put it over that bolt to put it back together. I don't really like that idea, but I don't think I have an option. I don't know why, aside from keeping them together and shipping, why they would send it that way, but it looks like that's what we're going to have to do. So that'll be next. I'm going to go ahead and get the bushings pushed into these springs, get the new shackles installed in the back. I got to clean out those the bushing holes back there. They're very rusty and corroded, so I'm going to clean those out with a wire brush and grease them up. Put the new shackles on, and we'll start putting things back together. All right, I got a little more progress. I got the new bushings installed in the rear with the new shackles. See that there? I got the new bushings in the springs. I've done that on both sides. I went ahead and took a wire wheel to spring perch and the angle blocks, clean those up a little bit. So now it's time to start putting these springs back in. And like I said, I'm going to have to, I guess, remove that bolt. So I'm going to put like a C-clamp on there to hold it together until I get it installed, and then I can take that off. So that'll be next step. I'm going to slide under there and try to wrestle this thing in place. And I'll catch back up with you guys whenever I get it installed. All right, guys, it's been slow progress, but progress nonetheless. So having to take that bolt out of the spring pack made it quite a bit more difficult because I had to put a C-clamp on the spring pack to keep it together. And then that was, in the way, trying to get everything situated. And then I had to go get my regular old jack out of the other Jeep, just the regular one you bring, comes with a factory vehicle, and throw it under the front of the rear end because the front of the pinion there had dropped, and I had to get it back to the right angle to get that bolt to go through the spring perch, or the spring pack, the way it's supposed to. So it's been slow, but it's done. Everything is tightened up. Everything got new bushings and hangers back there, new bushings up here, new U-bolts. I did find the nuts for the U-bolts, so that's good. I didn't have to reuse those. I'm going to go ahead and throw the shocks on back here real quick, and then that will finish it up for now. Once I get the wheels back from powder coat, I will have to set everything down on under its own weight, and then probably loosen and retighten these just to make sure there's no binding, because they're tightened up, pretty drooped right now. So I'm going to throw the bushings in the rear shocks and get those put on real quick. And then we'll be able to button up the rear end and start on the front. It's going to be a long day. All right, guys, this is it's a lot more work than I anticipated. So I went to put the shocks on, and the shocks, of course, are not long enough to reach on full droop, right? So I had to put the jack under the axle to jack up the axle to make it where it would reach, and they still weren't long enough. So then I had to get creative with this little strap here and cinch the axle to the frame to get it close enough to where the shock would go on. But I finally got them on. Everything is on there. Everything is good and tight. Both sides are done. Now it's time to start on the front. This might be a two-part video. And guys, I tell you what, this front is going so much smoother. I guess the front end of the vehicle is typically not as rusty and crusty anyway, but I've gotten to the same spot up here in less than an hour that took me 2.5 hours back there. I've got all the springs off, the shocks off.
I don't have to pull that pin on the spring. It's got a nubby pin just like the new ones. All I've got left up here is digging those bushings out right there so I can replace them and start putting stuff back together. This is going to be done in record time compared to the back. I am excited. Tell you what, things are moving right along. We got the spring back under the axle, front and rear bolts installed loosely. Next is going to be throwing the U-bolts on so we can cinch the axle up to the spring. And we got to reinstall the shocks. And this will be done. This side is going, the front end is going way faster. I'm happy too because I'm exhausted from that back, man. I'm tired. So I'm going to finish this up and then we'll check it out. We are cruising right along now. Got the springs reinstalled, got the U-bolts put back in, got everything tightened up front and rear. Everything is aligned. Pinion angle is right. All I got to do is the shocks now. I'm fixing to throw them in there and clean up. We can call this one done. All right, it is 100% chaos in the shop, but it's done. I got the shocks on finally. These top ones fought me a little bit, just getting the rubbers to slide over the shaft there. I had to use a big pair of channel locks to kind of persuade them to go on, but front end's looking good. Everything's bolted in. Everything looks tight. Back is doing good. Everything's bolted up. Everything's tight. I think this one's done. I still got to clean up, but it's done. Can mark that one off the list. And I just realized I got so excited last time, I didn't mark off the parking brakes or the rear brakes. It's a lot more off the list. All right, so the last big project on the list is going to be powder coating the wheels, and I've already got them broken down there in the back of the OBS, and I'm going to take them over this afternoon to get started. So hopefully within a week or so, we'll get those back. I'll get them mounted back up, and then we can get them installed and see how it really looks. But for now, we're going to go ahead and finish this one off. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you're enjoying this content, if you like the CJ stuff or the OBS stuff, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000. That's my next goal. So you guys subscribe up and drive my numbers up. I'm going to go ahead and clean up out here a little bit and clean up myself. You guys have a good one and rock on.